Glad to be here in South Florida, 313 to 305, 305 in my city.
I'm excited.
That's
I'm
what it
excited
is.
you're here, Eddie. And we have a very deep conversation we're going to be talking about tonight. But before we start, I want you to just kind of, share a little bit about yourself. Let the people know who you are, what you do. Tell them about the book. Oh, I can't wait to get into the book tonight. I read a little bit about it, but tell the people who you are and a little bit about yourself.
What an honor it is to be able to be here. I got my man Denzel, man in the mics, and I got you here, Miss Nikki Price. The Price is Right. We know Black Wall Street, but it's on Friday, so we're so grateful to have you here curating this conversation. A mix of Ella Baker and Nikki Giovanni all in one.
Yeah.
The learning and the burning. Then, of course, we're so grateful for Login 2.0 Genesis Christian Church and the man himself, the Reverend Doctor, the Right Reverend Doctor Pastor Owen Facey.
Yeah.
So glad to be able to, in many cases, come face to face to everybody who's watching us on Facebook and YouTube, and from Genesis to Revelation. Let's have the conversation. And listen, I'm from Detroit. My hometown is Motown. Shout out to all my Caribbean brothers and sisters. I grew up in Kingston, Jamaica for part of my life. And so always my feet are in the United States, but my heart is in Jamaica. And so to be able to, share as I do in ministry, as I'm embarking on my 11th book, as I definitely roll up my sleeves and engage in the community, but also we see, even though we're wearing our fatigues tonight, we're not tired, we're inspired, we're in fatigue, but we're not fatigued.
Come on.
So the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. And so I'm grateful to be able to even share tonight about this latest book that I have, America Can't Breathe, Red, White, Blue, Black Lives, and Unmasking Race in America. We don't need the Democratic National Convention, much less the Republican National Convention, to know that we are, in many cases, at war. And so, in many cases, it is with ourselves, not just necessarily World War III, but World War Me. And so, to be able to talk about race, the spiritual aspect behind it, warfare and praise tonight, I'm grateful to get into the meat and potatoes of the conversation. If anybody's watching, you need to be sharing. Share if you care. Your timeline can literally be someone's lifeline. And so we encourage you to do that.
Awesome, awesome. Listen, I know you guys are excited so far because I'm excited. I'm ready to hear everything you have to say and the gems and jewels you're about to drop for us. So, like Dr. Eddie said, make sure you share this live. Do a watch party. Get a couple of your friends together. Shoot a text message. Whatever you need to do. Make sure that people are watching tonight because this conversation is about to be amazing. So, this title of this conversation or this theme, this idea, as you guys see, we have on the army fatigue because we believe that we are at war, not only a physical war, but also a spiritual war.
Without
So
a doubt.
warfare and praise, this is where people need to spiritually go to war and implement warfare and praise. The Bible tells us in Ephesians 6:12 that we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against rulers. So why do you think it's time for people, especially people of faith, the church, to take their rightful position and stand their ground, so to speak?
Well, you think about Jesus and justice, you think about the church and the community. It has always been at the epicenter of it. Jesus's whole mandate is according to Luke 4:18. He said, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because He's anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor, send me to heal the brokenhearted, deliverance to the captives, recovering of sight to the blind, setting at liberty them that are bruised, preaching the acceptable year of the Lord." And even in a place where it seems life is unacceptable, it is still deemed the acceptable year. From racism since 1619 to COVID-19, we got Luke 4:18 and 19. And when you think about that, Jesus doesn't necessarily come for the rich and the famous and the hierarchical structure. He comes for the least, the lost, the left out, the last, the overlooked, the underserved, and the underrepresented. And so for us to understand our spiritual mandate, our communal mandate, to love the Lord thy God with all our heart, spirit, to treat our neighbor, love our neighbor as ourselves, We can't truly love our neighbor till we first love ourselves. We can't truly love ourselves until we first appropriate the love of God, which is in Christ Jesus. So to be able to have all of that coalesce together and to really not read the Bible from the top down, but from the bottom up,
Come on.
from the middle out, is where I think we are right now in our nation. These yet to be United States of America, these divided states of America, and to really see, even in John chapter 20, verse 19 and 20, we see Jesus standing in the midst of a fearful coalition of disciples who's worried about the Roman government, right? And so what he does is upon his ascension, upon his resurrection from crucifixion, he stands in the middle of his disciples. Fear not, peace be unto you. And then he breathes on them. Isn't it interesting that now 2020, we're wearing a mask. We're saying we can't breathe according to what George Floyd said, of course, even what Eric Garner said. Black people not being able to breathe since they didn't land on Plymouth Rock, but Plymouth Rock landed on them. Right? In many cases, can't breathe because of pre-existing conditions, pre-existing poverty, pre-existing racism, pre-existing health inequities. And now you think about it, yes, we have a mask, but we don't have a muzzle. And so to be able to speak truth to power, to bring redress, to be able to cry loud and spare not, to understand that silence is violence. Silence is being complicit. And so to engage, if we have the Holy Ghost, we shouldn't go ghost. We should walk by faith.
That's good.
And so I think this is what our mandate is, and we've got to exercise it and speak truth to power more than ever before now.
That's great. That's great. That's great. I know you guys. I hope you're ready for what's about to happen, guys. I hope you're ready. You know, I think a lot of times people almost get a sense or feeling where they don't want to talk much about religion or politics. It just becomes there's this controversy around it, and I feel like now's the time where people have to use their voice. And so we find a lot of people in the church who are using their voices, and they're going out, they're protesting, they're on the front lines, they're making a difference in their community. They're no longer being silent. I believe I watched a video today where Donald Trump said Michelle Obama's speech in the DNC was divisive. What do you think about when it comes to division in our community? Are we really becoming separate, or are we finding ways to come together and unify ourselves? And do you think that's the answer that our country needs? Not only our country, but also the church.
Well, when you think about the derision of divisiveness, we're dealing with not only COVID-19, racism since 1619, but we're dealing with COVID-45. So that in and of itself is a sickness from, what may be attacking our house, but all the way to the White House. And even the attacking of the Black woman, whether it is from Michelle Obama to Kamala Harris. As Malcolm X said, the most neglected, unprotected, and disrespected woman on the planet is the Black woman.
Yeah.
You all don't stand on the sidelines, you engage on the front lines, even us, even when we as men are oftentimes on the sidelines. So to think about the political landscape and the structure, when you're thinking about neo-fascism, when you're thinking about xenophobia and bigotry and all types of sordid negativity, and really as Dr. Michael Eric Dyson said, he COVID-45 speaks with his mouth and uses his words as a psychic commode to really just dispatch all types of negativity onto people. So when you think about all of that which is going on, to be silent, to not even uplift your voice or even try to bring redress, roll up your sleeves, not for applause, but for a cause and to help somebody else. Really, in many cases, you just take it lying down.
Yeah.
And so being able to stand up, having done all to stand. Have you done your all? What is your all that you can do? How can you stand, with those who have been negated and left out and even stepped on? Not just protest, but also we got to engage in policy. Not just demonstration, but also we've got to advocate for new legislation. And so when you're thinking about the oxygen supply of freedom, justice, and equality being choked from Black, Latinx, Native American, people of color in this nation. There's something that we've all got to do.
That's so good. That's good. Listen, guys, when you get on, make sure you're sharing this video. Dr. Eddie will be with us on Sunday, right here at 10 a.m. He will be teaching as well. This is just the very beginning. So make sure you're here, not only tonight for the rest of this conversation, but also Sunday at 10 a.m., same place. And 10 a.m. will be the time. So I want to talk about just some words of encouragement, because I think it's time for the church to rise up. And I've heard you say this is the time during, COVID-19 and during the quarantine that we must seize the moment. Why do you think it's important and I want to talk about the church, because I want to make sure that we are instructing our people to rise up and seize the moment and go after the things that they desire. Why do you think it's important for them to use this time to create, to maximize, to capitalize, to stand in their purpose, and to do the things that God has called them to do?
I think it is absolutely imperative. Isn't it interesting, as we're in 2020, my mind goes to Acts chapter 20, verse 20. And I think this is the year of being in the house. Paul said, I have left nothing that was profitable for you. I withheld nothing that was profitable for you in Acts chapter 20, verse 20. But I have taught you from house to house.
That's good.
Isn't it interesting that the mega church is now in the house? Pastors have set up their podiums, and their new pulpit and platform is literally in their living room now. We've gone from counting footprints to counting fingertips. We've gone from the whole aspect of platforms and podiums to now that which is our food pantry is most important. And I think as in many cases now the first century church operated out of the house, recognizing that they're more than the building, they are the body.
Come on.
And we are the body of Christ. What are the members of the specific body have to be united, have to be joined together. You can't say all members matter if one member is hurting. You've got to remediate the member that is hurting. If you stub your toe, you're not focused in holding your arm. You're focused on the pain of where it is that it emanates from. Jesus forsakes the 99 to go after the one.
Yeah.
And so I think it is absolutely imperative and important of what it is that we have been called and mandated to do. 2 Kings chapter 4, verse 1 through 7 speaks of a widow woman who had lost her husband. She'd lost the provider of her house. And in many cases now the creditors are coming to take her 2 sons as bondmen. Right? It's interesting. And so now she's crying out, a prophet, Elisha, how my husband served. He said, what do you want me to do for you? Then he asked her the question, what's in not your bank account, not what's in your chariot, not what's in your Jerusalem email, what is in your house? And I think it brings us to the question of what do we have that we have overlooked? After we've shuffled through shoes and shirts and skirts, what are we going to do to shuffle through the shelves of our soul? What are we going to do to remediate the trauma and the issues and the heart issues of what it is that we have experienced, to where, yes, we've warfared in praise, but we have not dealt with what is, in many cases, caused our soul to wither, of what has put us into pain. And so I think when we begin to do that, we'll begin to, as the widow woman did, she shut her door and she began to pour. I think that's what we got to do. As we're in our houses, you can't necessarily congregate with a whole bunch of people. Wouldn't be wise to do so anyway. What do you have that's in your house? The business can be written and developed in your house. The book can be restructured in your house. The vision can come to fruition in your house. The ideas can become income in your house. The contacts can become contracts in your house. Because if you don't evolve, you won't be involved. And so I think when we begin to really get to the place of, God, what was I created for in this generation? How is my gift of use in this generation? How am I of use in this generation to use my gift? And when we begin to look through the new structure of what it is that we have through our soul, we can now begin to walk in a place of wholeness and begin to do something different in desperate times.
So good. That's so good. Listen, if that doesn't encourage you to get up and move, I don't know what will. I feel super encouraged right now, and I'm really excited about this conversation. I just think about a little bit about the things that you've overcome in your life.
Yes.
I know you were talking about 20 years cancer free, and just beating the odds. Not many people can push themselves to past their own limitations and get to where you are in life, what you've accomplished. So talk a little bit about that. What have you overcome to be able to get to where you are now, and what really inspires you to keep going?
I'm a living witness. The least likely does the most mighty. I was not the most likely to succeed, in many cases deemed to be the least likely to succeed, the underdog. As a tender teenager, in many cases, growing up without my father in my life, raised by a single parent mother, the question becomes, how do you play a role when you weren't given a script? How do you become a man if you don't see one, much less interact with one? 2020 marks 20 years of me being cancer free. I'm a living witness. Your test of testimony. Your misery is ministry. Your mess is a message. Your stumbling block is a stepping stone. And in many cases, what God will do is he'll use your setback as a setup for your greatest comeback. He'll use your tragedy as strategy. And so to be diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, be diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and to, in many cases, fight through what was killing me from the inside out. Sometimes you're battling an enemy that you can't see, right? Weapons of our warfare are not carnal. We don't fight from flesh and blood standpoint. It's the invisible thing. And so I was fighting an invisible enemy that was vanquishing me. And in many cases, the tumor was forming around my trachea, around my voice box, which I used to make a living. Enemy wanted to shut you. He always wants to shut your mouth. And so to be able to, even when you can't open up your mouth, song said, Father, I stretch my hands to thee. And so to be able to fight through what I was going through, and have a praying mama who told me to go to Psalm 118:17, you shall not die, but live and declare the works of the Lord. Lost all my hair, my self-confidence, my self-esteem. I got more hair on my head now than I want to have. But in many cases, to grow through what I was going through. If we had the movie The Color Purple on one of these screens in here, I'd tell you, just like Sophia, all my life I had to fight. So to fight through the storm and the rain, and the people who are watching me had to fight through some sickness and some pain. But what you go through does not define you, it refines you. What you go through is not painful. Yes, it may be painful, but it's still purposeful. And I believe this is a season to be able to profit from your pain. Even as I was talking about 2 Kings chapter 4, the woman in verse 1 is crying, but in verse 7, she's rejoicing. She owes her creditors in verse 1, but she becomes an entrepreneur by verse 7.
Yeah.
There's something that you've gone through that God wants you to not only use as a testimony, but also to use to profit from what it is that you went through as a place that was most painful.
No, that's so good. Listen, profit from your problems. When you overcome, you can use all of this. You can use your story to become who God has called you to be. Nothing is ever wasted. So this is really great to hear you say that. And just I want us to shift a little bit, because you talked about the crown on your head. You have a whole different look now.
Yeah.
The appearance is different. The hair has grown now. So, let's talk a little bit about that, because I feel like this is all a part of a transition for you. You are now in your 11th book. You
Right.
are using your voice in ways that I believe has always been there. You've always done that, through mentorship and through going out into the streets and protesting and, doing the things that you've been doing. But there has been a transition for you. What happened during quarantine, during COVID-19, that allowed you, one, to finish your 11th book, A Mirror I Can't Breathe? You can talk about this. But what happened during this time that made you feel like it's time to really step out there and do more?
I saw a meme that said, you expect me to stay the same? I've been through 2 pandemics. One thing is this has always been me. I've always been culturally aware. I've always been aware of the skin that I've been in ever since I was a child, whether it's being called the N-word, whether it is a brush with the law, whether it has been being mistreated by nurses in a cancer ward or by professors in an educational institution. And I think all of it became a perfect storm as I'm working on a virtual vision summit and writing a book at the same time, in many cases, driving myself crazy, burning the candle at both ends, going to sleep at 6 a.m., waking up at 10 a.m., and feeling the rage and the angst of what it is that us as Black people in America are dealing with. And A Mirror I Can't Breathe is the most important book I've ever written in my life outside of the first one that I ever wrote, which was Finding the Can in Cancer. And so to be able to write my 11th book coming out on September the 11th, George Floyd said 11 times, "I can't breathe." Eric Garner said 11 times, "I can't breathe." The number 11 means disorder. The number of 11 means chaos. But the number 11, what I love about it is that it also means judgment. Not only are we in the book of Revelation, I believe, I think we're also in the book of Judges. And I think in many cases, America is being judged now more than ever before. Not only are statues coming down, statutes are now coming down. There's a changing of the guard. There's a new reconstruction. And I believe it's not only just taking place in the natural, but it's also taking place in the supernatural. And so God is blowing his super on our natural, so to speak, to where there is a coming to America, so to speak. And, as America sneezes, everybody else catches the flu. And so I think America is now being judged on its greatest sin in the guard of the reckoning. If you think about even in Exodus chapter 1, the Bible says there arose a king who knew not Joseph, right? And so as this king arose, he wanted to make them bond slaves. But what the scripture says is the more that they were afflicted, the more they multiplied.
Oh, that's good.
And I believe that even in this season of affliction, the reason you're afflicted is because you're gifted. But in the midst of the affliction, I believe is coming multiplication. Multiplication in your gift, multiplication in your healing, multiplication in your development and your interpersonal growth, multiplication in the vision and the revelation that God has given you. And so this is not the time to run away from what God has given you. This is the time to seize the moment, to see it, but also to seize it and to walk by faith into it.
That's good. That reminds me of the scripture, Psalms 34:19. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him out of them all. And so I love that, because even though we may go through some really trying times, we still have the ability to arise out of the ashes and become who God has called us to be. So do not waste the pain. Do not waste what you're going through. Don't look at it as if it's just something happening to you. It is intended for a true purpose, and God can use all of it. So I'm excited about that. So, what can the church do? I think that is a conversation that we need to have. We have so many different organizations on the front line, people who are going out, they're protesting, they're going out, they're doing what they have to do in the community. But where does the church come in? What role can the church play? And what's some advice that you can give to the church to get up and make it happen?
One thing is that I believe as the church, we've got to stay engaged and involved more than ever before. I think we have focused so much on membership that we have not focused on the aspect of discipleship.
Okay.
And I think now more than ever before, we got to do it in a different way. So many times Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, the internet was seen as the devil. It was that which was regarded as demonic. We excoriated it so much, but now we need it more than ever before.
That's good.
And so I think when you're thinking especially about millennials staying engaged in the church, and when you can go to Barna, which is, Christian statistics about the church, which speaks about membership in regards to millennials, or them feeling segmented or feeling left out. Now is in many cases a changing of the guard more than ever before. Listen, your greatest asset in the church now is not necessarily the praise team. It is not necessarily your organist.
Come on.
In many cases, it's your visual graphic designer, graphic artist, engineer. That is the most important person, right? Because now you've got to disseminate information more than ever before, right? Greater works than these shall ye do. Don't you think the Lord envisioned us going virtual too. You have an opportunity to be omnipresent in one place. And that is from the whole aspect of where it is from your laptop, right? The greatest opportunity for a pastor to get now is not necessarily keys to a building. Sometimes, in many cases, is leadership from a laptop.
Yeah.
So I think now, especially when you think even about Black Lives Matter movement, and there's a lot of angst, there's a lot of thoughts on that. But even if you think about the movement versus the civil rights movement, those are two different types of parallel movements there.
Right.
Why? Because the civil rights movement had a central faith aspect, faith figure and figures.
Yep. That's good.
Black Lives Matter movement has no affiliation with the church, if to my knowledge, right? And so I think now, more than ever before, millennials, yes, I don't believe they love God any less, but I think they want to see God exemplified in justice.
That's good.
They want to see God exemplified in economic sustainability. They want to see God exemplified to where environmental racism is eradicated. They want to see God exemplified to where it's not just word, but works,
That's good.
right? Faith without works is dead. So we want to have the faith, but we also need the work aspect in conjunction with it too. And so I think with that, I think we've got to bring a different type of revelation. And the revelation is this: there's got to be a different type of theology that is proclaimed now beyond just name it and claim it, blab it and grab it, speak it and receive it. There's got to be a theology of suffering. There's got to be a theology of sustenance. What did Paul say? Oh, that I may know him in the power of his resurrection. We want to preach that. But what about the fellowship of his suffering?
Yeah.
Right? People are suffering so much now. People are food insecure and insufficient.
Yeah.
For him to be a sustainer while I'm suffering, is that not a blessing? Am I only blessed because I pulled up to the scene with my ceiling missing? Am I only blessed because I got on red bottom shoes? Or am I blessed because I'm covered in the red shed blood of Christ?
Come on.
Am I only blessed because I got on some Christian Louboutins, or am I blessed because I'm a Christian? Right? And I know the love of my soul. And so I think we've got to move from a specific aspect of just material blessings to the immaterial knowledge of who he is in my life. And whether I got $1 million or a mansion, or if I'm just in a 1-bedroom house, I understand that I can gain the whole world and lose my own soul, but I have a connection with him. And I know, because I'm a part of the remnant, I will be blessed and I will be sustained.
That is so good. Listen, I wish you guys were in the room right now. I swear, I feel God in this place. Denzel's over there like, I feel God. I feel the Holy Spirit in this place. This is good. There's a passion that you carry when you have conversations like this. I've watched you over the years teach and preach on stages, and I've been so inspired and impressed by your work. But there's this innate passion that I believe goes beyond the gift. Where does that come from? And I know we can say, this is definitely something that God has blessed you with, but what's behind that? You can definitely touch on that. God has given you the gift. But where does the passion come from? What does that look like for you?
It comes from everything I'm not made me everything I am. I think it really comes from a place of, if not for the grace of God, there go I. But I had to suffer. I had to fight battles that only my God and my mom were there for me. I had to fight some battles that my father didn't show up. People who I thought were praying for me were literally praying on me, sitting on the sideline expecting my demise. I had to fight battles of chemotherapy and radiation 5 days a week. Losing my hair, not believing that I was going to make it. wanting to give up because cancer had emaciated not only my body, but my mind, not wanting to live, you know. And I'm not alive because I wanted to be here. I'm alive because God sustained me, but also my mother fought for me when I didn't want to fight for myself. I was ready to go. And so in many cases, depression was going to take me out. Suicidal thoughts were going to take me out before I allowed cancer to. So to resurrect the mindset, but also even to take, you know, I credit a lot of it for me even taking a trip to Jamaica when I was literally fighting for my life. Doctor said to my mom, take Eddie back, take Eddie on a vacation someplace. We'll resume chemo when he comes back. She took me back to the island where I grew up at, where I grew up playing soccer, where I went to school, where I had a little Jamaican patois that y'all need to pray about because I know I need to work on my accent. Where I was praying for people as a kid, 4 or 5 years old, praying for people whose feet were their shoes, who the only time that they had a meal was being able to pick a mango off the tree. So to go back there and to even preach my first message, and it was interesting. I had enough ink in the printer, and I printed out the message. It was called Destined to Overcome the Odds, but it printed out in red.
Oh, wow.
And I said, this got to be a sign that I'm covered some way, shape, or form. And the pastor says to me, I want you to preach. I'm like, no, I need to be preached too. I'm the one dealing with cancer. I ain't got no hair on my head. And he says, as I preach, as I minister, get to hand him the mic, and he brings all the members of the church around me, and they lay hands on me and they pray for me. Can't nobody pray like a Jamaican can.
Come on here.
And on that flight from Jamaica back to the States, the doctor said, we can't find a trace of no cancer nowhere. We're going to stop chemo and radiation. And the prayers of the righteous availeth much. People prayed for me. People fought for me when I didn't want to be here. And so to go through affliction, to go through the fire, to go through some trials, and not just talk to you out of what I heard, but what I have experiential knowledge about. You know, can't nobody tell me what God can't bring you through. From COVID to cancer, don't matter what it is. I'm a living witness that you can make it when other people don't think you can take it.
That's good. Wow. I'm normally a woman of many words, but I'm indeed speechless right now. Thank you for sharing that. You are indeed a gift to this world, you know, and it is a blessing to see what you've been through at such a young age and to overcome and to give your gift back to the world. So it's so inspiring. I hope that this is blessing you guys, because this is truly blessing me. We're talking about warfare and praise with Dr. Eddie Connor, and I mean, he had to warfare, and he's praising his way through the process, and we see it now. We see the glory of God on you through all that you've accomplished and all you overcome, and there's still more. You haven't even scratched the surface yet. You haven't scratched the surface. You saw him come in for that one, right?
I see that.
Haven't scratched the surface. You know, I want us to shift. You know, it's such a great conversation. I want to talk about the book. You know, I want you to share what was the inspiration behind this. You know, what is this about? You know, we started a show called Black Wall Street. If you guys tune in every Wednesday here, you'll see that we're just inspiring entrepreneurs and empowering them to increase their income and influence. And all of this is so connected. You know, the book, Black Wall Street, also protesting next week in Kentucky for Breonna Taylor, arrest the cops that killed Breonna Taylor.
Yes.
You know, going out and making our voices heard. You know, but tell us about the book. What was the inspiration behind it? You know, where can we find it? Where can we support it? Just let us know about it. The 11th book. Wow. Great accomplishment. But tell us all about it.
You know, without a doubt, A Mayor I Can't Breathe, Red, White, Blue, Black Lives, Unmasking Race in America comes out September the 11th, 9/11, which is a Friday next month. And then also what I'm doing is a virtual book conversation that same evening from 9 to 11 on 9/11. So everybody who gets the book, as you pre-order it, you get a copy. You say, well, where can I get a copy? Listen, the revolution not only be televised, it'll be digitized. EddieConnor.com, EddieConnor.com. You can go ahead and get a order a signed copy even now on the site. It's radical, it's relevant, it's revolutionary. It speaks to the times of where it is that we are living in. It's politics, it's prose, it's prophecy, all in one. And really the whole aspect around it, I've mentored young males for many years, and oftentimes we want our brothers to reach for their goals, to reach for their target goals, but oftentimes they are a target in society. When you think about Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, the confluence of all of that, COVID-19, it really did something to me, and I felt as if I wanted to write about this more. I've touched on many of these issues before. I wrote a book, My Brother's Keeper, in time past, but I've grown since my 5th book, which that was, and this is now my 11th book, when I never even saw myself writing one. And I really wanted to be personal. I wanted it to be provocative. I just really wanted it to be poignant, and that's what it is. You know, a friend of mine asked a very known celebrity singer, how is it that you've been able to write so many hits? He said this, in order for me to write a hit, I first have to get hit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so for me, this book hit me emotionally, it hit me spiritually, it hit me on so many different levels. And as I was writing, I was healing. As I was writing, I was grappling with Dr. King to Rodney King, from racism since 1619 to COVID-19, from Ella Baker to Fannie Lou Hamer to Malcolm X to what do we do next? You know, to all of those things that it is what we're dealing with, but also to deal with even what our white brothers and sisters can do. Because they are essential to unmasking racism. They are essential to dismantling the systemic racism and lack of justice of what it is that we are seeing in America. So I've got a section here on anti-racism. Got a section here on what our next steps are. Listen, the book is replete. Once you pick it up, I'm telling you, it's going to be very, very hard for you to put it down. There's going to be so many nuggets and notes of not just the political and the social and the natural aspect, but even the spiritual mandate that we have. As the Bible said, those who have much have to help out those who are least. And so the responsibility of privilege is in there as well. So
That's good. Listen, go and grab your copy. You can just open up a new tab on your laptop and go ahead to EddieConnor.com and grab your copy. I've supported it. Denzel has supported it. Genesis has supported it. Listen, go and support this book. You know, what I love about this is the transparency, the authenticity that you have described in this conversation, in this book. You know, but I find that, you know, oftentimes when some people are to have this radical conversation, it's like you're doing too much. You know, it's almost like we should temper ourselves and not be so boisterous and not talk so much about the issues in this country, not talk about religion or politics. Just, you know, calm down. And I think we've been calm for so long, and now we're at a point where, no, we don't want to calm down, and we want to have these conversations. So how can you encourage the church to now use their voice with conversations like this and not be afraid to stand up against the injustice that we see happening in our country every single day?
great question. And I think it really is going to have to emanate from what we've been doing has not been working. Here it is. So many people are so focused on let's get back to normal. Normal in many cases was making us sick in the first place. Right? Normal is not behind us. Normal is ahead of us. How do we create this new normal? Right? This new normal of what was is not going to be what remains. The only thing constant is change. And I think one thing that we have to do is, we ebulliently, provocatively share, cry aloud and spare not, let justice roll down, let righteousness roll down like waters, right? But in order for that to happen, somebody's got to upset the equilibrium. There's got to be a John the Baptist. There's got to be a voice of one crying out in the wilderness. There's got to be somebody who's going to be a David of their generation, an Elijah or an Elisha. There's got to be always those who are going to upset the norm and really begin, as grandma would say, tell it like it TI is.
Yeah.
Right? You've got to tell it like it is, but you've also got to have some pragmatic steps in there of this is how we do to galvanize to move forward. And there's always the opposing force of change facing those who want it to remain the same.
That's good.
There's always those who would rather keep it the way it is. Let's not upset the apple cart. Versus those who say, let's flip some tables.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think now we've got to have not just the Jesus of that we know who would just Jesus wept, but let's talk about the Jesus who flipped the tables.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Jesus who in many cases said a wicked and perverse generation. Let's talk about the Jesus who gave out free health care. Let's talk about the Jesus who would take a boy's lunch and feed 4,000 or 5,000 with it. Let's talk about the Jesus who would also even go away and meditate and get into his secret place. And then even because of what he went through in the wilderness, now he had to face a demonic entity or force that he had to face when he would walk across the water, or when he would go on to the other side.
Yep.
There's always going to be an opposing force.
Yes.
But when you're prayed up, when you're engaging in warfare and prayer, when you're engaging in warfare and praise, when you're engaging in warfare and worship, when you're wrapped up, tied up, and tangled up in him, it doesn't matter what I'm seeing. I know what I've already been experiencing. And the weapons of my warfare are not carnal. I can fight the good fight of faith because I got on. I'm G'd up from the feet up. I got my loins with truth. I got my breastplate of righteousness. I got the helmet of salvation. I got my feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. But check this out. I ain't got nothing for my back because God don't expect me to run from the devil. He said, resist the devil and he will flee from you. I ain't running from it.
Come on.
I'm running to it.
Come on. That's good. Wow, that is amazing. That's good. I love it. I love it. Listen, guys, as we're going to continue this conversation. We got a couple more minutes here. But please share this live, guys. Share this because we want everybody to tune in and be a part of this. And also, if you have any questions, drop them down in the comment box below. Let us know what you'd like us to ask Dr. Eddie tonight. I'm sure he has an answer for you. So if you have any questions, please comment in the comment box below, and we'll go ahead and answer those questions. So I want to shift, and what I love about this conversation is warfare and praise. We're talking about we're talking about ministry, we're talking about church and faith, but we're also talking about the reality of life, the reality of what's happening in our country, the truth of what we're facing, and how to manage ourselves in the process. So, I want to shift a little bit to talking about voting. Oh yes. My gosh, we are, right now the DNC is happening, and we've heard from, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, Barack Obama, Michelle Obama. We've heard these conversations, and I want to be honest. I've talked to a select few people about, we just had the primary elections in Florida, and I've talked to people, and they are not interested in voting. They are not going out to the polls. They're just not. It's not an interest for them. And it's a little disheartening to hear that because of what's happening in our country, we need to make sure we're voting. So what are your thoughts about that? Not necessarily who to vote for, but why is it important for millennials and people in general to get involved in making sure they're casting their vote, and also with the climate of our country, making sure that we're doing our part when it comes to that.
Yeah, people are tired, number one, of putrid politicians to where you have to hold your nose and vote for them. People are tired of trying to decide between the lesser of two evils. People are, in many cases, have a disdain with the whole political process because you see people who overpromise but underdeliver. And so I think now there has to be a new, changing of the guard. We're seeing now, we've got candidates. You got to choose between one who has dementia, one who's demonic, or one who is discombobulated. You got to choose between Biden, COVID 45, and Kanye. Listen, he's on at least I think 8 to 10 different states.
God help us.
Listen, we definitely have to stay engaged in the process. And I think more than ever before, I think this is a monumental election here. We cannot afford to stay home.
Yeah.
We cannot afford to be apolitical right now. We can't afford to just say, well, we're just gonna let God handle it. The king of the heart of the king is in the hand of the Lord. He turneth it so wherever we will, wheresoever he will. But yeah, we got to not turn a blind eye. We got to make sure that we get into these cars, walk across the street or wherever it is that we're going, assemble in the heat, whatever it is, whatever the climate is. It is the sweltering heat of injustice of what it is that we're experiencing. So we can't afford to stay home. We got to lift our vote with our voice. We got to lift our voice with our vote.
Good.
And we've got to really be engaged, especially when we come out to vote. Listen, it turns in our favor. Millennials, the 68-year-old grandmothers, of course, but also in the midst of voter suppression, we've got to make sure that we have voter registration coupled with voter education. We're going to really, really have to carpool, or you're going to have to Uber, or whatever the case may be. We got to listen, take souls to the polls. And I think we're going to really need to just vote in the interest of where this nation needs to go.
Yes.
Forward, not backward.
Yes.
Turning the page forward, not turning the page backward. So MAGA has to be make anti-racism great again. Right? We've got to have that which is vested into the really what America ought to be. America's going to have to really hold itself accountable to what it said on paper, and really bring this promise to fruition, so we can really push out of the plight of what it is that we're in.
Yeah, that's so good. We talked a little bit about this. We, made a joke, but it's interesting. America needs a mother. We need somebody to restore the confidence that we once had. We're challenged now with knowing that we're dealing with humanity issues. We need leadership to be in position to take us to a destination and to heal our country, to heal our people. People are suffering and they are so frustrated and they're done with what's happening in the world. So we need somebody who's willing to stand up, but we also have to do our part. We have to do our part and get to the polls and exercise our right to vote. We have the opportunity to do that. People fought for this right. So we need to make sure we're exercising that. So this is
without a doubt.
Awesome, amazing conversation. I'm just so excited. Listen, if you guys have any questions, we are going to be answering those questions shortly here. So do us a favor, comment in the comment box below anything that you'd like to know about Dr. Eddie, or any questions you may have that I can ask him about, so he can inspire and encourage us and galvanize us.
I love it. I love what you're saying, especially when you think about decency and humanity, and when you think about even, in the fragility of our society. America needs decency. America needs empathy. America just needs a deep expression of humanity. Here it is. America needs an average Joe.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Listen, that was, was just a little plug there. Plug. This is so good. This is so good.
But and then you think about this as well. It is sadly enough, whenever we're in the most desperate times, who does America always call on? A black woman.
Let's talk a little bit about that. Let's just take it there.
We nursed their children.
Come on.
We cleaned up for them. We're their nannies, their mommies, their nannies, their cooks, their grannies. And now we have to galvanize them to create a better society. Cleaning up their mess. Black man called in to clean up the mess. That's a lot to unpack right there. That's a lot to unpack.
Wow. This is good. This is good. What I want to do is, we have time for just, one more question with you and I, and then we're going to go into the Q&A section here. What's something that you would like to say to not only the millennials watching, because we have a really broad millennial fan base, or community base here, rather. And what would you like to say to the people if you were to leave a lasting impression for them, not only for millennials, because Genesis collectively has different type of people in their community, different age groups, and I believe that we all can learn from each other, from millennials to the elders. There's a deep connection there. So what would you like to leave the people? What would you like to say to encourage the church as a body to get up, to seize the moment, to go after the purpose that God has given them, and also use this time to use their voice and to make a difference in their community? What would you like to leave with the people?
Despite the most dark and difficult time that we're in right now, this is the finest hour of the church. I think coupled with a new resurrection is also an insurrection. And that is the restructuring of society, restructuring of even a theology that is not so placated in a pseudo type of monetary driven level, but it is inculcated in the whole aspect of the real Jesus, crucified by a corrupt government, did no wrong other than upset the whole aspect of the Roman government.
Yeah.
Who, in many cases, what other person do you know? He had to be a black man. If he was killed for a crime he didn't even commit, right? Hands outstretched, unarmed, unassailed, but still with that whole aspect, bringing us into not a greater place necessarily of monetary gain, but salvation. To redeem the soul of America, to, in many cases, as the late, great Congressman John Robert Lewis said, to get in good trouble, necessary trouble. Now we've been placed outside of the four walls, not necessarily by osmosis, but we've been placed outside the four walls by the structure of now how society has gone. And now what will we do with this opportunity? How will we galvanize and be able to think differently in different times for the cause and the crusade of Christ? How will we take that same message of Christ to begin to take it into the hedges and the highways and the byways in a place that in many cases is most dangerous now. Right now, can you touch somebody without touching somebody? Can you be there without being there? And so to be able to think about new ways that we can bring the message of Christ now more than ever before, this is now the time for the spiritual innovator. This is now the time for the entrepreneur to say, yes, you don't have a pulpit, but you do have a platform. You may not be licensed, but you have been chosen to be able to empower somebody with the message and the saving grace of Jesus. And so to be able to do that in the form of what it is that looks like as a good Samaritan, as somebody who's taking care of the least, the lost, and the last, and left out. I believe now more than ever before, that is our mandate, to get beyond ourselves and to hide behind the cross, and to show that it's not only just by faith alone, but it's also faith in conjunction with the work of Christ.
That's good.
Beyond just church, now let's do ministry.
Come on. We got to do ministry, y'all. I love it.
Let's have ministry.
I love it. You know, and I think that is so important because it reminds me of making sure that we are mindful and connected to our relationship with Christ and not focus on the religious structure of it. Because I think sometimes, you know, some people can get caught up in that and forget that they need to intimately know Christ. Into me see. Allow him to see parts of you that you aren't able to show to other people. And I think it's really important to have that relationship. So, guys, we're going to ask questions now because we're going to wrap up. This has been a phenomenal conversation. Dr. Eddie, thank you so much for having this conversation with us and sharing your insight and your wealth of knowledge with us and just encouraging us to move forward. And, you know, like I said, guys, at 10 a.m. on Sunday morning, Dr. Eddie will be sharing a message with all of us. And it will be an amazing time. Warfare and Praise. You do not want to miss it. So make sure you invite a friend and come to virtual church with us on Sunday. So we have a question here. This is by Tamika Lewis. And she says, can you share how to recognize being under warfare and how to recognize when you should praise? Can you give us practical steps?
Well, yes, without a doubt. You know, I think in many cases, warfare, when you think even, you know, the Apostle Paul, you know, and even throughout Scripture, mentioned the whole aspect of praying without ceasing. And so prayer is an attitude. Prayer is a disposition. It is in that aspect of communication. And, you know, the Bible said that we don't always know what to pray for, but the Spirit maketh intercession for us with groanings that cannot be uttered. A groaning that cannot be uttered is not a that I just uttered that. But it's something in the Spirit that your spirit connects to, God's Spirit connects to your spirit, and your spirit connects to your mind. And so it is not just mental alone, it is faith, it is spirit, all interconnected together, to where I do warfare. I'm praying incessantly because I don't know where the attack is coming from. Sometimes the attack is coming even in the house from those who you might be a spouse or your children, right? Sometimes the attack is coming from any other type of way. And it's just like as I was watching the news the other day, the lady who was on the news, the meteorologist said, hey, we're expecting a storm today. But even beyond the storm, she said, make sure that you leave your house covered. She was talking about masks and gloves, but even spiritually, you've got to not only be covered when you leave your house, you need to be covered in your house. You need to plead the blood of Jesus over the doors. And even as the Bible said, even in Exodus, when I see the blood, I'll pass over it. So covering yourself in the blood, covering yourself every single day, that once your feet hit the ground in the morning, that hell ought to be trembling because, oh boy, another day that he woke, another day that she woke up, and she's getting ready to do damage to my kingdom. By intercession, by prayer, by fasting, by word, by worship. right? I'm getting into the Spirit of God to where he operates in me, to where I go, his presence goes with me. When his presence goes with me, favor goes with me. When his presence goes with me, demons have to tremble. When his presence goes with me, healing comes with me.
Yes.
Because I'm connected to him. And because I'm connected to him, everything that's in his hand is already mine.
Come on.
And so being able to understand that I got to stay strapped, as they say in the hood, but also even in the Holy of Holies, I'm strapped with the word.
Yes.
I've got it going with me. I don't leave home without it. And so I think that's where we have to come from, because we're not only, this is not just a natural thing.
Come on.
This has spiritual implications. And I've got to be covered in the blood. I've got to have my mind right. I've got to be thinking thoughts of Christ. Whatsoever things are lovely, pure, of good report, if there be any virtue, if there be any praise, I got to think on these things. I got to have the mind of Christ so I don't lose my mind. I got to be not conformed, but I got to be transformed.
That's so good. That's amazing. It just reminds me of just knowing that this is something to pray about. Always pray for discernment, because you just never know, like you said, where the attack will come from. It may come from the people closest to you. So you always have to just be mindful of what's happening. We are having a spiritual experience every single day. This is not a physical experience. This is a spiritual experience. So just being discerning and knowing what's going on, and being on top of your game. So I have another question, and we're gonna wrap after this. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, Dr. Eddie. We had such an amazing time together, and it was really great.
Out of time, but not out of truth.
Never out of truth. Never out of truth. And I have a question from Denzel. He said, "How can you introduce kingdom culture to restore American culture?" And also, I guess the second part to that, and how to have authority in that, how to stand in authority in that.
I think it is in somewhat of a dichotomy between American culture and kingdom culture. Jesus said, when you pray, pray thy kingdom come, thy will be done. And so even though we are under the auspices of a government, the Bible says that the government shall be on his shoulders. Yeah. Right. So there's still an opportunity to be able to not just survive, but even thrive by operating in kingdom principles. And I think kingdom principles go along with the whole aspect of servanthood. You mentioned a quote. You said, a lot of times when people get in a leadership position, it's not a step up. It's literally a step down, because now I have to serve. And so I think even with servanthood comes a place of being like those people with the talents. The person, you don't want to be the one who buried their talent. You want to be the one who is going to multiply their talent. What is the talent that God has given you? And if you don't know what it is, now in many cases you need to go into the manual of his word, and you need to begin to open it up. God, what did you place me here for? God never places anything on this planet that is not gifted. And so understanding that a job is what you're paid for, your calling and your purpose is what you're made for. Operating in purpose moves you into a place of operating not solely by miracle, but by principle.
Yeah.
So operating in principle, meaning I'm a good steward of what you have given me, because I'm a servant based upon what it is that you have given me. So servanthood, stewardship, two abiding principles of kingdom appropriate living and lifestyle. To say, God, you usurp all of what it is that is in my life. And based upon that, I want to operate in a purpose level in entrepreneurship. I want to operate in a purpose level spiritually. I want to operate in a purpose level in my community. I want to operate in a purpose level even in those 7 mountains, the entertainment, the community, the church, so on and so forth, because you've given me a gift, but my gift is going to make room for me and bring me before great men, because I operate according to the kingdom mandate that you have given me. And even in an oppressive society, God can still provide opportunity.
That's so good. That is so good. You know, I've heard you talk a little bit about this before. And I think a lot of times we have to think about how our purpose connects us with people. You know, whether that's your purpose partner or that is a business partner, your purpose is the key component to take you to where you need to be and who you need to be with. And we discussed this before about Ruth when she was working in her field.
Sure.
And you know that field, if we can just talk about that in you know our terms now, you know, working in the field of education.
What's your
Or,
field?
you
Yeah.
know, so I want you to touch a little bit about that because I think a lot of times, you know, people are looking for things outside of purpose. But purpose is the thing that is going to draw you where you need to go. It's the magnet that connects you with who and where you need to be. So I want you to talk a little bit about that with purpose and connection, and also how that is the key thing to take you to where you need to go.
Without a doubt. And you referred to Boaz finding Ruth in the field. And you know, you asked that question, what is your field? In many cases, and so many people have not found their field. They found how fine they are, but they haven't found themselves to be focused. I don't know how fine, if at all, Ruth was. Maybe it wasn't so much that it was her feminine pulchritude, where she's, you know, intoxicated with exuberance of her intellectual verbosity. I don't know if it was all of that. I don't know if, you know, she was 36, 24, 36. The Bible speaks of nothing in regards to her countenance. However, I believe Boaz tapped into not just her curves, but in many cases her character. I believe he didn't necessarily just see how fine she was, but he saw how focused she was in her field.
Come on.
And so I think the question becomes, beyond you, you know, you fine, but what else? Beyond you, you got a whole bunch of money, but what else? You know, are you focused in your field? What is your purpose? Before you ever expect a purpose partner, have you first partnered with your purpose?
Come on.
And I think when you come to that place to say, I've mastered the level of singleness, I've mastered being in the place of where it is that God has called me to, and I'm whole, I'm healed. If God brings the one for me, I'm fine. If God does not bring the one for me when I want him to bring the one for me, I'm still fine because I'm operating in the place and in many cases the sweet spot of my purpose. So I don't need somebody to complete me. God completes me.
Come on.
They compliment me. Not just compliment you. Oh, girl, you're fine, and man, you're handsome. No, that's COMPLIMENT. I need the COMPLEMENT. More than just chemistry and compatibility, there's got to be suitability.
Come on. Good. That was just a gem that I dropped for my single folks, okay? Listen, stay in purpose. It's going to bring you your purpose partner. You won't have to ask any questions. You'll be fine. So, you know, Dr. Eddie, thank you so much. This was a great conversation, very enlightening. Listen, if you guys have any questions for Dr. Eddie, you can definitely write it in the comment box below and we'll try to get to it for you. But be here with us on Sunday at 10 a.m. You do not want to miss this. I'm telling you.
Tell 10 people.
Tell 10 people to arrive at 10. So, Dr. Eddie, where can they find you? Where can they support the book? Where can we locate you? All that good stuff.
What an honor it is, again, to be able to share with you as the voice of truth of what you're doing on the South Side in South Florida, 305 in my city. We're so grateful for the opportunity to share with Pastor Owen Facey and Genesis Church and Login 2.0. We want you to not just log in, but log on Sunday at 10 a.m. It's going to be absolutely incredible. You see right here the book of one of the most important books that you will read in 2020. Let me say that right now. One of the most important books that you will read in 2020. America I Can't Breathe is going to breathe new life into your spirit. Red, White, Blue, Black Lives Unmasking Race in America. It's coming out September 11th, but you can get an early copy. Pre-order right now. EddieConnor.com. EddieConnor.com. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Eddie Connor Jr. If it's not a blue check, it ain't me. So holla at your boy, and let's do this. And I love all y'all watching. Appreciate you so much. Stick and stay, of course. Share this conversation. Somebody needs to shift their mind to the next dimension. And we're so grateful that the new school, Fannie Lou Hamer, Ella Baker, Nikki Giovanni, Miss Nikki Price knows the right price, and so we're so grateful for her tonight.
You know they say the price is right.
That's
so.
right. That's right.
Well, you know what, guys? Make sure you support the book, support Dr. Eddie and the work that he's doing and the impact he's making in the community. It's phenomenal to have you, and you're such a gift to us and to the world, and we're so grateful. What I want to make sure that you guys know, every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Black Wall Street.
Come on.
We are here encouraging and empowering entrepreneurs to increase their income and influence. So tune in every Wednesday at 8 p.m. And then last but not least, guys, we're out of time, but like Dr. Eddie said, we're not out of truth. So what we would like you to do is you can sow a seed for Genesis and Login 2.0. You can go to mygenesiscc.org. And you can click on tithes and offering, and you can sow your seed there. And remember to follow us on social media, Login 2.0, and also like this page, and don't forget to share. And I'm so grateful. Thank you guys for being here, and thank you for showing up. I'm going to have Dr. Facey come back on and close us out and give us the benediction, and then we'll close out with worship and praise.